We can start now.
Yes, okay. Let's see. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I see more people joining for every second. Hi. Okay, so let's start with the SDGs Unpacked, the Unsustainable Development Goals. So I am Stephanie. I'm the GDSD from the Open University, and we got...
And I'm Yasin Mohammed Osman. I am the GDSC at University of Southampton. And me and Stephanie will be presenting today, hosting the event. So we're going to immediately kick off by looking at the agenda first. So to get the interactivity going and to be less boring, we're going to start with a fun icebreaker hosted by Alexandra and Bruce. After that, we're going to go to a 1 minute description of 1 or 2 minutes description of how to make an impact through the Solution Challenge. And after that, we will immediately start our speaker, Stuart. We're going to start the talk. And after that, we were going to have 2 teams from the finalists from the last Solution Challenge, which is SimplAR and QRegister. And after that, we were going to basically be wrapping up which like the submission reminder and sharing some resources. And we're going to present for you all the upcoming events in all the, most of the clubs in the UK and Ireland. And lastly, the most fun part, we're going to have breakout rooms and to have a more close-up chat with the finalists from last year.
And now, so here is just some friendly faces of some fellow GDSC leads from all different parts within the UK and Ireland. And we just want to say a little thank you to everyone who has been helping us with this event today. And a special thank you to, drum rolls, to Kiara for everything that she has done for us, for being a mentor, for being a guidance, for also being a friend, and just thank you for everything that you've done for us and for our teams and to make everything possible, basically. So thank you for that.
Yep, indeed. Thank you very much, Kiara, for everything. And now for the icebreaker time. I would like to invite Bruce and Alexander for the icebreaker.
Hey guys, I'm Bruce. I'm the lead at Swansea. Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the lead of the Warwick Club, so thanks for coming, and let's get started then.
Yeah, so we'll just kick off. If you go to the next slide, please, Yasin. Just to kind of get you all warmed up. So, faced with the choice for the rest of your life being locked into either macOS or using Windows on all your devices, what would you choose? Obviously, there's a lot of things to take into account. So just fill that chat. Let's see what you've got. Okay, we got a pretty split decision here. I'm seeing a few Linux
somebody actually
fanboys
said
as well.
Linux. Yeah.
Nah, get out of here. Okay, well, it's looking pretty split. So no definitive winner for that one. So if we move on to the next one. This one's a bit less controversial, hopefully. So given the choice, being able to speak to animals or being able to speak all languages that humans can speak, what would you go for?
And no tricks. Speaking all languages doesn't count as speaking to animals, so no tricks, no tricks.
Okay, this one's looking pretty split as well. But it looks like all languages have the lead so far. Okay, cool. So we'll move on to the next one. Alex, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So imagine if all the superhero gods are telling us to choose between those 2 lovely companies that are making us movies. What did you keep alive? Like, what should we keep and what should we get rid of? Marvel or DC? This one is not that split, to be honest.
Yeah,
most of the people are
one way.
choosing Marvel. Cool. Yes, more wins, Chiara. Thank you. Yes. But the only thing that I really love about this is you got Batman there, so shout out to him at least. Okay, thank you guys for joining us for the icebreaker.
Thank you, Alexander and Bruce. But of course, it's predicted for Marvel to win after the new Spider-Man movie. That's my personal opinion. All right, moving on to the next point of our agenda, which is basically how to make an impact through the Solution Challenge. And I'm pretty sure the finalists from last year will even talk more about that, but and even the breakout rooms. But basically, using the 17 SDGs, you can make projects through, of course, innovation and problem solving to have a better impact through your solution, to come up with a project and ideas to solve one or more of, as I mentioned, from the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of SDGs for a better future, for not only for the society, but also for the community and the planet as a whole. All right, so it's definitely have a big potential. Your project definitely have a big potential to see the light and make an impact in the world. All right. Third thing on our agenda, I would like to invite Chiara.
Thank you, Yassine, and welcome everyone. My role here is just to introduce our first speaker, and I'm really happy that we have Stuart. I think we can go to the next slide. So Stuart, he works at google.org and is basically responsible of the outreach and advocacy for partnership for Google for organizations such as the UN. So it's really is the perfect person to speak to you about how you can really kind of interpret it at the best the Sustainable Development Goals. So I pass on my virtual mic to Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara, and hello, everybody. It's nice to be here with you. It would be nicer to be with you, obviously, but here we are in this strange world. I hope you're all keeping well and staying safe and finding your path through all that complexity and the uncertainty and so on. So yeah, a little introduction to myself first, and then what I'm going to talk a little bit is about the Sustainable Development Goals, but then and then open it up to questions from you guys, of course. I assume Chiara can tell us, but I assume you've got a far better chance of winning this competition if you ask really interesting questions. So so we'll make that the benchmark. So yes, as Chiara said, obviously I only look vaguely like I look like in the headshots because that's what the headshot is for, and I haven't had a haircut for 2 years. Yeah, my role in Google, I joined Google 7 years ago from a small Irish NGO working in the arts and culture community, and my kind of time before that NGO was actually all in management consulting with Accenture and Capgemini and a couple of others, and I after my time in Accenture, I decided I wanted to go and do something where I had the opportunity to engage with the cultural community and kind of give back in a way, and so I had 7 years with that NGO, and before deciding that I wanted to try something new, and having the good fortune to find a role with Google. And at the time when I joined the organization, I joined Google in Dublin. So I hope we have some Irish friends here today. I joined Google in Dublin to be part of what was at the time a team that focused on our employee giving and volunteering. Our employee giving and volunteering is huge. You know, when Google employees have a sort of pot of money that, as an individual, when I make a donation, or when my colleagues make a donation to a charity, to any NGO actually in any field whatsoever, when I give money to them, Google matches that money up to $10,000 per year. So it effectively kind of doubles my personal giving capacity. And then when I volunteer my time, the organization kind of facilitates my volunteering and opportunities to work with organizations. And I made that change at the time because, as any of you may sort of who have got good eyesight may have spotted, I'm considerably older than most people in Google by some distance. And at the time I thought it will be kind of super interesting to join this business, which has a huge population of young people, and have the ability to help them think about how they might contribute and how they might make a difference in the world, and to use that power of the personal power of giving and volunteering to engage with causes. Over time through Google, then I moved on from the employee giving and volunteering into grant making in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and led our grant making to NGOs. And I'll talk a bit more about Google.org itself and how that works. In the region, focusing on all sorts of areas on digital skills and digital responsibility, working across the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. And then over the last 2.5 years, I've led what we call our advocacy and outreach team, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in the context of the SDGs specifically. And so just to kind of round off the introduction piece, as Chiara said, and as I've mentioned, the bit of the organization I'm with is Google.org. It's Google's philanthropy. It's probably important to say that Google's philanthropy sits within Google as an organization. So, we're not like the Wellcome Trust or the Emerson Collective or the Gates Foundation, which are separate bodies that exist only for philanthropy. But neither are we, at the consumer goods end of consumer marketing, if you like. So if you think about brands like, or some of the brands that are contained within organizations like Unilever and Procter & Gamble that do extraordinary kind of work, which is really around social impact marketing often. When I used to give this example, I used to say, they'll talk to you about how using soap might save lives. And of course, when I use that example, I used to do it quite flippantly, but of course, using soap really does save lives these days. And of course, in the developing world and in the global south, that has always been the case, where there are huge issues with hygiene and the spread of disease and so on. But of course, that's something we've all become very familiar with, as my poor sore hands are testament to. And we just announced last week, I mean, it's a big piece of Google. We just announced last week that 5 years ago we set out to give to disperse $1 billion in the next 5 years, and actually we just hit that 5-year landmark the other day, and we actually have given $2 billion to NGOs around the world over the last 5 years. So and Google.org was set up at the very start of the organization. So the founders, when they wrote the founders letter at the very beginning, set out to give 1% of net profits to NGOs around the world. And at the time that was 1% of nothing, and now obviously it's 1% of quite a bit. So I have, I guess it depends on what your interests are, but I guess I feel like I have one of the very best jobs in Google. My specific work and role is around outreach and advocacy. So providing money to NGOs is super valuable and important. And having run a small NGO, I don't have a lot of time for people who say, oh, the money's important, but there are all these other things. The money is really important. But actually making a stand on issues and advocating for issues, when you have the power of a brand and the power of a recognition, and you have a voice, as all of us know, that is something that's vital for us all to do. And we, at various points in our lives, we will have either experienced being empowered or disempowered, and we probably will have had the experience of how strong it can be when we stand up for an issue and we raise our voice in an issue, but also whenever in our lives we have felt disempowered or under or excluded, that having somebody who is advocating for those issues that are important to you is incredibly important as well. So that is the context of who Google.org is and who I am. and to say, and as with all of us, I've been sitting in the corner of this room for the last years. One of the big ironies of my job is, one of my main parts of my job is how we turn up at major events, and obviously this is how we turn up at major events most of the time these days. So hopefully in the year ahead that will change. So moving on to the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals themselves were established in 2015, and they really were packaged. Like the SDGs themselves. Yes, you're all many of you will be far too young to remember the Millennium Development Goals that came before them, and just to say, you know, that I personally speaking, I think the framework and the approach is incredibly valuable. They are not a panacea. They are not a solution for everything. They're not the answer to everything. But I think I'll talk a little bit about why I think they're important. The Sustainable Development Goals, if you start at the very top level of the name, is significant in itself, because actually, if you look back at the Millennium Development Goals and what was formed part of that, you'll actually see that at the time, climate and sustainability very much took a secondary role in the MDGs. There was sort of very strong feeling at the time that we needed to address issues around poverty and debt, and that, you know, if we had to fix those things first before we got on to these broader issues. And of course, you know, that was a narrow view of the world, to say the least. And while of course now I think there is a growing awareness and understanding of intersectionality and the implications of intersectionality, that you'll see that the idea in itself that you can address one issue to the exclusion of another is kind of ridiculous. The SDGs themselves are, you know, it's a UN instrument. You know, the UN as a body is incredibly important, to my mind. Again, not all will agree on this, but as an organization, it's incredibly valuable and central. And, you know, it's obviously founded on the basis of peace, but it's founded as a multilateral environment where conversations between individual countries and governments and many stakeholders can happen in a coordinated fashion. And but one of the downsides of being the United Nations is that it can be extraordinarily hard to work with. It can move very slowly. You know, like all big organizations, there is a lot of complexity in that organization. And if you can imagine the task in itself of trying to navigate and negotiate something like the Sustainable Development Goals, it was a big task at the time. And, you know, and it ended up, I mean, the SDGs themselves are in some gigantic document that I have not read, and I definitely wouldn't recommend any of you read, unless you have an extraordinary amount of time and patience. And even then, maybe you probably can think of other things. And ultimately, the SDGs, as you see them today, and the sort of the wheel, which you'll all be very familiar with, and you've seen on the slides, is effectively a way of kind of trying to boil down a series of issues into a sort of recognizable brand and a recognizable framework and a set of topics and so on. And of course, even 17 is a lot, and there are, you know, you can break them down even further into you know, subgroups of poverty and equality and health and sustainability. You know, is often a framing of the 4 big subject matter areas. And as you go into the work that you're about to do, when you think of this, I'd sort of be willing to bet that when you sort of have a challenge that says we need to frame something, you know, you're going to come up with an idea that addresses issues within the Sustainable Development Goals. You're probably going, well, what does that mean? Because they seem to cover everything, and you'd be right, they do. They cover absolutely everything. And that is both their amazing brilliance and also their greatest hurdle. So, you know, if I think about the example I often give is I've, you know, in my work, I will frequently myself, or working with some of our kind of Google's leadership, or my boss in google.org, the president of google.org, will frequently be engaging with, you know, other CEOs and political leaders and stakeholders from civil society, and talking about the context of these issues. We did a lot of work, for example, last year in google.org on Goal 5, gender equality. my favorite goal, that if you don't solve gender equality, to my mind, you won't solve anything. It's if you're disempowering 50% of the world's population, that's not a great start to address all the other 16 issues that you want to tackle. And so when we did that last year, that's a huge amount of our focus. But the work specifically that we did last year on gender equality was around economic empowerment for women and girls, and that also is goal 8, which is around decent work and economic growth. So these things all coexist and they work within there. But the point of the point of this all, and it goes back to one of the icebreaker slides, is if you were going to choose whether you would like to be able to talk any language in the world or whether you want to talk to animals, I guess ultimately what you'd like to be able to do is to talk to everyone and for everybody to understand. And for me, the real power of the goals is that they provide a common language and a common framework. And one of the things that I observe, and it's one of the reasons that I've sort of become so engaged in them as a topic, is a couple of years ago, I was attending some sessions at the World Economic Forum, and I was looking at kind of other speakers and other people, and they were talking all about the goals, and we might have been talking about the work that Google.org was doing, but it never quite found its voice or its place, and this might involve some of the organizations and NGOs that we work with. And I guess what I realized in that was because within that context, people were using this common language and framework as a way to understand the work and the issues that they might tackle. So whatever idea, I mean, you'd be pretty hard pushed to come up with any idea whatsoever that you could not fit within one of the SDGs. So in a way, in terms of the challenge that you have set, I think that I would say philosophically, almost anything you can do could address those issues if you're thinking of it through a social impact lens. And really, that is the key bit, is what is the social impact lens that you're thinking of it through? Many of you will have heard there's kind of a throwaway comment that's made from time to time, and I'm not quite sure how throwaway it is. My boss often says it, is if you look at a lot of the apps and platforms that have been developed, you'll see that a lot of these have been developed by, people sitting in the West Coast of America who are trying to fix the things that maybe somebody else used to do for them at home. They want to get their laundry done, or they want to get a lift, or they want to get some food, or whatever, thing they can't do for themselves for whatever reason. But of course, lots of us use those services and they're important, but these aren't tackling the real issues that are sitting at the heart of the site, because we can only fix the issues that we see. We can best fix the issues that we see in front of us. There's an amazing guy in America, a guy called Brian Stevenson, who runs the Equal Justice Initiative, one of the most amazing racial justice organizations in the world. And Brian often talks about the need to get proximate to a problem in order to address it. Like, you need to be next to it, need to understand it. Clearly, that's not always possible, but being able to, that's why I love being in Google.org, is, because actually we're often working with those people who are closest to the issue and the challenge, and to understand those, and that's where I spend a huge amount of my time, and our time is working with our grantees to make sure that they are supported to fix that. So we, use an example, we work with an amazing guy. He's amazing not only because of his work, but also because he's an engineer, and his name is Engineer, who runs a project in Uganda which looks at air quality. Uganda has one of the worst levels of air quality in the world. This is his world, this is his life, like, he lives in this. He recognizes that issue of not being able to move around, not being able to breathe properly, and he has used a platform that's kind of integrated AI and using very simple air quality monitors. But he's worrying about that because that's what's right in front of him. And somebody else somewhere will have the same idea or a similar idea, but they won't necessarily come up with the problem. So they won't come up with the solution that is based on that, the understanding of it in that context. So I guess for you guys, as you think about this, I think the SDGs for me are a hugely important framework. They're often called a framework, a blueprint, a roadmap. They show us the things that we need to address. And let's be clear, the last 2 years, they show us the things we need to address in order to support those communities that are most underserved in society. And the last 2 years have had, again, you guys, I'm sure will know this, that you have had entirely disproportionate effects on those who were already disadvantaged. Again, having spent a lot of time working on gender equality last year, I mean, the numbers are absolutely shocking. I spend a lot of my time with UN Women. The backward steps on gender equality over the last 2 years are heartbreaking, actually. The burden of care falling on women and girls, the exclusion from the workplace. There's an extraordinary stat in the US that net unemployment amongst men in the US is actually 0 over the last 2 years of COVID. And net unemployment for women in the US is huge, because actually so many of them have left the workplace in order to do that. So these things, there are targets, and we are a long way off them. They're a long way from being achieved. I personally feel that technology has a huge role to play in making sure that we make progress towards achieving the goals. Of course, there will be many areas where we will fall short of those targets, but the momentum and the direction is going to be important. And a lot of the work that we do looks around the application of AI in this context and around accelerating solutions in order to achieve those targets that we need to do. And again, a lot of you will be aware from COP26, a lot of the discussions around net zero and what we need to achieve by 2030. And a lot of the conversation about that is about achieving that by 2030, and we will definitely get there, and we'll definitely use tech somehow. But I think the most interesting stories are a lot of stories that are coming from often from smaller developers, smaller communities that are actually taking the measures to introduce themselves, taking the measures themselves, that are actually making the change on the ground right now. So when you think about this project and you think about the SDGs, it's a framework for advocacy. It's a framework for using them. They're designed to be able to, the burger place around the corner from me here uses them in the context of their supply chain for their excellent burgers. But we also use them in a corporate context as well. So think of them as a framework, think of them as a way to structure your work, and think about the social issues that you might be trying to address, and that will set you off onto the right path. And don't get too caught up in the sort of mind-boggling breadth of them. So that's what they are. That's how I think maybe is a good way for you guys to think about them. And of course, now, if you'd like to have open up to any questions you've got. I don't know, Chiara, how you want to handle this. You want to do it in ping, or people speak up?
Whatever, like if you want to just unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you want to write it in the chat, don't be shy, up to you.
Anyone?
Hi, could you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I just wanted some explanation on the last SDG, which was about partnerships with corporations. How exactly does that play out generally? Thank you.
Thanks, Lukman, for the question. So partnerships for organizations, just to clarify, do you mean that in the context of how Google.org does that, or how we think of partnerships in the context of the SDGs?
So I was asking, for example, if somebody were to target that SDG as a target SDG that they want to include in that, what does that mean to them? For example, I feel you explained the gender equality one pretty well in terms of how you target that and what that means to target it as a solution and a problem. But I don't really get it in terms of solution and problem. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
cool. So I guess goal 17, the partnerships goal, is a catch-all within the catch-alls, I would say. When I think about that, so if I think about that from the work that we often do, for example, that often we don't do that alone. We think about, there are lots of things that Google does and that Google does within its own organization, but often we try, we'll be far better at achieving those objectives if we are doing them in partnership with other organizations, with civil society, with other philanthropies, whoever those might be. So I think for you guys, if I put it in the context of this particular program and this particular work, I guess what I would be thinking about here is, if you have a project or an idea which in order for it to succeed in itself, you know, a good, I mean, of course, many good ideas sort of disappear because they don't quite get off the ground, or they don't find the right angles or networks. I mean, I would actively suggest that thinking about what the partnerships are that might bring your idea to life or bring it to the widest possible community is probably a good framework to think of it in this context. You know, so when you know, it might be that you have, because you have an experience or you have an idea that you I'm just trying to think of Zara. Spent some time last year with somebody who works on a digital skills training program. She's based in France. Originally the program was based on the kind of on a migrant community based in France. That idea is now extended and is now being kind of taken back into Africa. But the individual running that program doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the networks on the ground in that country. She has connections from the work that she's done in France, but how does she take it back into those markets? So she's identified partnerships. So for this, I think I would think about partnerships in the context of how to maximize the opportunity of driving your social impact and your reach of whatever your project or idea is.
Thank you. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Thank you.
I believe Frank Carver just sent a link regarding a site. Frank, would you like to explain a bit more about your link, please?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just a link to an article on my blog that I wrote about the UN sustainability goals and software.
Excellent.
So, I mean, just to give a bit of context, I'm doing a PhD and my topic is the environmental impact of software development. Because one of the key things about this is that while, as Stuart has eloquently said, you know, sort of technology and software can have great positive benefits if used right, but also you mustn't lose sight of the fact that it's using, estimates vary, but I mean up to something like 20% of the world's electricity is going on computer technology right now. And so it's equally important to reduce the impact of the systems that we're working with as it is to use them positively to improve sustainability goals generally. And that's really my point.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Frank. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. I just wanted to answer Didi, because I think that's more a question in regards to the Solution Challenge itself. And you know, like the Solution Challenge really gives the chance for you to kind of give your input on the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think it's up to you how you come up with the idea. I think definitely collaborating with an NGO, especially to understand what challenges they face, could definitely be a way to move forward, right? To understand what's the issue and how you can help. But in terms of which goals are being prioritized by Google, I'll leave it to Stuart.
Yeah. So I actually had a meeting on this earlier on today, where I actually, every time in Google we try and work on like how we build out a narrative or a story around the SDGs, we get lost in this maze of like somebody saying, well, I've got this work and it's like, does goal 2? And somebody says, well, I've got this thing, it's 5. Anyway, before you know where you are, you've got like 17 projects that hit all 17 goals. And actually, so while we have particular work streams and activities that do align with the goals, at the top level, we don't prioritize any in particular. But you can see that, let's say, there are programs that we run, so things like digital skills programs, which do tend to fit with goal 8, and actually, the gender equality work that we do does fit with goal 5, and the sustainability work fits across a number of areas. So but we don't prioritize any specific goal at any particular time. The other thing is with Google that actually the minute you think you've kind of found all the things that people are doing, you discover that somebody somewhere else is just built out some extraordinary somebody on goal 16, I think we suddenly found last year, somebody's built out an amazing monitoring solution with the UN for goal 16, which we didn't know about until recently. So Google's kind of amazing for people being very empowered to do things, which is both amazing and also means that you suddenly discover things you didn't know were happening. So yeah, we don't prioritize any in particular, but tend to try and group the narratives under the areas that are relevant at the time.
Thank you. And I think we have a couple of minutes left with Stuart. So if you have another question, Stephanie?
Hi, Stuart. Thank you for joining us today and for this amazing talk. So I was wondering, well, for you, for example, it must be really giving to actually make an impact and to see all of these projects like come up, and when it comes to sustainability, and not only to help communities, but the society and people as well. But do you find that it has been difficult as well to actually see some communities suffer or see all of these consequences that basically many things that the human self has been creating? Do you feel like have you felt this pain yourself, or how to see like how these people are struggling, or what are the disadvantages as well for you to be working with these things?
Yeah, what a great question. It's a great philosophical question, Stephanie. I mean, I guess in my role and in my job, I guess I guess I try and remember all the time the most extraordinary privilege of being in the role that I'm in the organization I'm in, and also to be highly cognizant of the dynamics that creates. There's a and I work in a big global corporation that, as I said at the start, has dispersed $2 billion. I mean, these are huge sums and huge responsibilities. In one of the reasons that I love my role, I guess specifically, is because I said when I went to COP26 in Glasgow last year, I tweeted about this because I felt a lot of I mean, I spent time with the protester in a personal capacity. I spent time with protesters at COP26. But I guess and that was as an individual, and but at the same time, I'm doing my job as well, and I guess what I feel in that is it's the opportunity for me to help bring voices to tables and into rooms that would not otherwise have the opportunity to be there and to be heard. And I mean, being very honest, the day that I feel like that's not possible, or the day that I feel that that's not something that is sort of not welcomed or not open to, then I think that's when I would wonder if this is the right place to be anymore. But for now, I do see that, and and again, one of the things is that you do spend time in this job in a of course we live in a bubble. Within a bubble, I'm a white, middle-aged, privileged man sitting in a nice apartment in Dublin, and it's at that point I made earlier about getting proximate is one of the things that I try to do with humility, to get close to those things, and to listen to the broader views as well. I mean, I think the point that Frank made earlier, is really important, of recognizing, that these things are not the panacea. They're not all the answer, that you have to be cognizant of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really, you can tell while I'm answering it, it's a big philosophical thing, and, you choose where to spend your time and energy. And at the moment, I feel like, I say, the opportunity to bring voices and to bring our grantees and their work to a broader stage is the best way that I can help and contribute. But if that ever were not the case, then I'd probably think it wasn't the place for me.
Thank you so much for answering that, and thank you for everything that you do as well. And because you do already so much, and you give so much an impact to like people and communities, and just by, well, not just by, but coming here and to talk to all of these students and all of these people who are interested in participating in the Solution Challenge, you also give an impact to them to be able to actually have the possibility of getting heard and to bring up projects to actually help other communities or their own communities and the world. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again, Stuart.
All right. I think thank you very much, Stuart, for the amazing talk and for being with us here. All right, moving on to the next part again, and just let me share my screen. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I would like to invite Alexandro to introduce the first team from our from the two upcoming speakers.
Thank you, Yasin. So if you could pass the slides.
Yep.
Sure thing. So with no further ado, SimplAR, they're one of the top 10 finalists from Germany. They're all students of the Technical University of Munich. So pretty tough. Yeah, Vivian's, hey, pretty tough university, and they've worked on a solution using machine learning in order to teach you how to present and how to be more aware of your body language. So probably they'll talk a bit more about their solution, and yeah, enjoy it.
Thank you. Let me share my screen as well.
Also, by the way, the solution that you just described was the same, part of the same team's last year's solution, where they also won. So you're not completely wrong, but yeah, this year's topic was a bit different, but we'll see in a second.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thanks you very much for the introduction. So we are a team of 4 students, Maria, Almo, Vivian, and me, Sami, of the Technical University of Munich in Germany. I think Almo has some connection problems right now, so we might be just us 3. And so at the beginning, maybe how did we came up with our solution? And I can really recommend doing a very deep brainstorming session at the beginning. So really take a lot of time, think about problems you might like. And the reason for that is that you should really be interested in your own solution to push forward and to keep going. And also it's way easier if if you think or if you think your solution can really change something, it's way easier to also convince a jury. And after we had a rough idea what we want to do, we started interviews with persons of interest. So we started writing with organizations and experts. And maybe if you don't know how to approach your solution, it can really help to ask experts, and they give you a better idea of how to implement, how to start, where to start, basically. Maybe polish your pipelines, etc. And also talk to organizations, because many of the organizations already have some solution or approach to a solution. And you get a better idea of the problem itself, and you get an idea of the momentary state. And it also helps you to get an idea where your solution can maybe help the organization to get better, or to solve the problem. And at least for me, it was really important to talk directly to your target group. In our case, these were disabled people, because it really helped me stay motivated. If you get direct feedback, understand their problem, it really helps to see how they respond. And most of them will respond positively, so will be excited to use your solution. And it keeps you going, basically, And it also helps you to get a deeper understanding of the problem. Can they even use the app how we intended them to use it? And so please talk to your target group if you have one. And so maybe that's basically how we came up with our idea, SimplAR. And because I think you just started your solution challenge or started brainstorming, we will give you some tools which can help. The first one is Miro. It's basically, they're all free, by the way. And so Miro is a tool which you can use for brainstorming. You can create mind maps, flowcharts, etc. Another useful tool or an alternative to that is here, Jamboard, and it's basically very similar, but you can draw freely, so there are no limitations for creativity. Then for organization, You can use Notion. Notion is very nice because you can create roadmaps. You can use it for your documentation of your code. You can also do mood boards. You can basically do everything with it. And especially if you split your team into sub-teams where you focus on different things, Notion is very nice. So the next one, of course, is Google Docs. Use Google Docs because everyone at the team can share, access, and work on documents. So everyone is still all the same on the same page. Also very useful is Trello. Trello is also for creating roadmaps, creating tasks, assign tasks to different people. And so you have all the time overview on your project.
All right, thanks, Sami. Some more tools we have used for designing. So once you're done with your brainstorming, you want to maybe brainstorm about the design of your solution. And so we used Figma for this, and Figma is a really easy to use tool that can basically emulate your app. What we also use for communication are the tools that you probably already seen a lot last year. Mainly we use Discord because we can create channels and voice channels there. So that was really helpful for our team. Then for code sharing, yes. I mean, most of you probably know GitHub, but if you don't, if it's your first project, GitHub is a really good way to share your code so that you're always up to date. And also if you do some mistakes, you can just reverse it. So that's it for the tools. I hope you could use some of those. Now let's jump into our project. So as you know, our team is SimplAR, and we did an AR app for functionally illiterate people that can translate any text of any form into plain language. So just an explanation, functionally illiterate means, that you are able to see, or you are able to read, but you have difficulties understanding difficult sentences. But yeah, this video hopefully will explain that. I hope you can hear it though. Okay, no, I don't hear anything, sadly. Anyways, I can just
yeah, you can share the link and we'll send it off on the chat.
Okay, yeah, we'll share the link on the chat. Then I'll explain. Basically, what you can do is that we made an app that is in AR, and then you can take a photo of any text that you want, and our app will recognize the text in it and send the text to our backend, which is Google Cloud. And there we use natural language processing to basically translate complicated sentences with complicated grammar and words into a pretty plain language or simple sentence structures, so that anyone who is functionally illiterate can understand that. And that really helps with people who maybe don't know the language very well, or maybe they have cognitive disabilities. I mean, that's 1 in 7 people. That's a lot of people. So yeah, that's our solution. Go watch our video if you want to. For the Solution Challenge, you will have to submit a 2-minute video of your solution as well.
That's
so
yeah, that
so was
much. Wonderful. Thank you.
Great.
Really
so
I think we just
here,
have a minute left for you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have here our tech stack, just for you to know what our app was built like. It doesn't mean you have to do it the same way, but yeah, this is just one example what a Solution Challenge submission could look like. First of all, we have our front end and a back end. We split everything into 2 teams, into 2 parts, because we could also split our team into 2 parts. And that was really useful because of like time constraints. You can really work in parallel, and one team can work on one thing and the other team could work on the other team at the same time. So I would really recommend thinking about your system design first, and then splitting the system into parts that teams can work on in the same time. So on the front end, we used Flutter to basically take the images, and from the images we can use MLKit, which is a Flutter integrated package, to extract the text from this image. The text is then sent to our backend, where we set up a Google Cloud project. If you want credits, as we discussed before, you can apply. And this Google Cloud project then does some pre-processing. We use the OpenAI API, which is GPT-3 in specifically, to translate our text into a plain language text. And then we do some post-processing so that we have it in the format that we want it. And then we have our simple text. And this simple text is then sent to our front end so that we can compute the positions and the size of the text and show it as AR overlay on our actual photograph text.
This is really interesting.
Thank you,
Is that the link in there?
Sorry?
Is that your link for your YouTube where you just showed us?
It's already in there. Sami sent it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ivana. You will all be able to also talk a bit more about your project in the Q&A section in the breakout rooms. We now have to continue. Yassine?
Yeah, I will just quickly say what we learned during this project. So first of all, as Zami already mentioned a couple of times, a good brainstorming session is really necessary because you really want to make sure that your idea is really focused on a specific group of people, because it's much easier to find a solution for a specific group of people instead of a really large group of people. With a specific group of people, you can really have some people who will actually use your solution. Also, we learned that we have to gain valuable input from experts because they helped us, for example, bring our solution to the next level. We talked with an ML expert, with a professor, I think, and they gave us a lot of feedback about our ML pipeline and how to improve it. Also, it's really important to interview stakeholders because those people, they know best what problems they have in their own specific field, so they can tell you a lot about their problems, which you can iterate upon. And also, don't forget that there are a lot of unsolved problems that we usually don't see. So I think this mostly appeals to the brainstorming session. Again, it's really good to just interview people, and it doesn't matter from which field. It's just good to interview them because they know their field the best, and they can really provide you with some problems that you may not see on the surface at the first time. And about tips and advices that we would have is just ask for feedback and improve. This is how we did it. We did an MVP from our solution, and we talked with the stakeholders and received some feedback on our solution, and were able to integrate it. Then talk to experts before finalizing your idea, because again, they can help you to improve your solution as well. Also, like we mentioned a lot of times, be very specific with the idea and make sure your product is actually needed. And don't forget to focus on important problems. And that's also a crucial part, because when you start a program, you will find a lot of different problems appearing, but you have limited time. So it's best to focus on really important problems and to define them, and then just like have a really good MVP that you can maybe submit. Also, try out new technologies. That's what we did. We used a lot of new technologies this year and also last year during the Solution Challenge. And I mean, you just use the time to learn something new and of course have fun. And yeah, that actually concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much, Maria. Sanad, you're on.
Hi, I'm Sanad from the GDSC of TU Dublin. And the next team we have is QRegister from Turkey. They came up with a clever solution to manage receipts. And can we have the next slide, please? Oh, I think Kim is sharing her slides.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you so much. Please take it away.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
No, we can see them now. Thanks.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Thanks for having us. Humeira?
Of course. My name is Humeira Budur, and I'm one of the team members of QRegister. I was involved with the coding process and the design of the screen. I also actually was the founder of the idea for QRegister. And QRegister is simply a digital receipt system that eliminates the usage of paper receipts and thus makes the whole process of buying things and receiving a receipt more sustainable.
Yes. And my name is Alkan Nameke. Thanks for having us again. We are from Middle East Technical University. I'm an electrical engineer. And I worked on the UI UX, the video and everything you see on the display screen with the QR. And I also worked on some codes for the inventory on the back end. And today we will be talking you about our journey with Google Solution Challenge. And also we will be giving you some tips and tricks
to get into top 10 that we thought was useful for our success. So let's start. Here is our video. I hope it will have some sound.
Welcome back to QRegister.
Do you have any sound?
Yes. Yes, there's sound.
That's great.
QRegister, the register of the future. Our team consists of curious, aspiring engineering students driven to save the planet and improve everyday life with technology. Did you know that the majority of people think that paper receipts are obsolete? According to our survey of hundreds of respondents, most of the users think that paper receipts are ineffective, outdated and hard to keep track of. Moreover, for paper receipt production, masses of trees are cut down, multitudes of water and oil is wasted, excessive amounts of carbon dioxide and solid waste is generated. Keep in mind that these data are for each year in the United States only. Imagine the vast amount of damage paper receipts are causing all around the world. Moreover, 93% of paper receipts are unrecyclable and composed of harmful chemicals which cause diseases including cancer. What if there is a simple solution by using only QR codes? To save our trees, our planet, our home. Introducing QRegister. Our screen is based on Raspberry Pi. It generates QR codes for the purchase according to the inventory files. These QR codes contain all the data in an encrypted form where we use the special hashing system to store data in one string. The QR code is then scanned on our mobile app developed with Flutter, which enables us to build our application faster and create a beautiful UI/UX design. QRegister automatically scans the QR code and asks for confirmation. After the scanning is complete, receipt details will be on the profile page, listed by dates and labeled with supermarket icons for glancing through quickly. The swipe action archives receipts for easy access. QRegister continues functioning successfully in offline mode. We store the encrypted receipt data in the local storage, and once you connect to the internet, we transfer it into Firebase. We upgraded by integrating a barcode scanner, which scans items rapidly. We want QRegister to be effortlessly implementable globally, so as an alternative, cashiers can also connect a webcam to scan barcodes. In the future, we will use the camera to recognize the items without scanning barcodes. Lastly, we are honored to announce that QRegister was selected to be supported by our university. It is anticipated that our first register will be open in our college's merch store and meet users in the summer of 2021.
That's
so
So let's give you some tips on how. Wait a minute, this just canceled. Yeah, okay. Wait, let me share my screen again. Now it's full screen. Yeah,
it's good now.
Okay, so this is QRegister's checklist. This is just special for you guys. We wrote this for you. What did we do to get in top 10 for Google Solution Challenge 2020? So these are some hacks and tips for you to get going. So firstly, we brainstormed ideas on globally useful projects. This means that we sat down the whole DSC Metu in my university, and everyone just said some random ideas.
It was like really, it was on Discord, and we just split into various brainstorming groups, and then we just changed groups and discussed on those ideas and just build up on it. It was really the idea for QRegister. When I like submitted it to the group, everyone added something else. Like I first said that it should be done with Bluetooth so that many people could use it, and then someone said no, we should use QR codes since people are now used to it due to COVID, so let's just use that. And then Alcom added something, then Deniz added something, and that's how QRegister had the final stage it had.
Yeah, and then we conducted a survey. This survey was really inclusive. So we had all occupations, all ages. We literally sent it to everyone we know from WhatsApp groups. And after that, we were sure about our idea on why paper receipts were obsolete, why everyone was having trouble tracking down their purchases from months ago, or when they wanted to return something, they couldn't find the receipt. And they were really harmful because they are literally coated with plastic. They are a little bit shiny if they look at it. And those plastics are really harmful for you because if you touch it, like upon human skin contact, they are absorbed through your skin. So they cause many diseases, including diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, premature puberty, and also cancer. Some types of cancers are induced by those BPA chemicals. And after the survey, we continued our journey.
we had something like a boost during our process of building the project. We joined a hackathon by Google Developers Student Clubs of Turkey, and this was called Hack for the Planet. And in this 3 days process, we kind of sped up the process of the project and like built the demo of the project in, I don't know, 3 days. And after that, everything we did was add upon it, add new ideas. For example, add the barcode scanner, add the camera, or do some improvements on the mobile app. And like joining the hackathon really set us on track and like made sure that we were able to submit our solution in time.
So if you can find any hackathons in your area, please do join them, because this was really valuable. We literally had QRegister up and running, the first prototype, in 72 hours. And after that, we just did some improvements. We just added some features, and it was really beneficial. So do join a hackathon. And then we planned ahead of time, because consistency is over intensity when you are doing a big project like this one. So when we were doing the project after the hackathon, we had just some small steps left. And what we did to balance our academic life and the project was to focus on our studies in the weekdays, and on the weekends, like when the classes were finished on Friday, we literally would sit on Discord group and start working on QRegister. So all of our weekends were for QRegister. And this really helped us not cram the project in a few days, because if you do try to cram your project in a few days, in a short period of time, that will be really hard for you to get a really professional looking, nice project up and running.
So the next thing we did, of course, after deciding on the idea, was to contact sponsors for financial aid, because we were using tools like not just online tools, or we weren't just coding, we were also using hardware like the Raspberry Pi screen, the Raspberry Pi itself, and those are relatively expensive components for someone. At least in our country, it's a little bit expensive in comparison to other countries. So we contacted sponsors for financial aid, and thankfully our school and one tech company helped us in buying those components. And yeah, if you also have the similar issue, you can really start contacting sponsors right now. And I think they respond in a positive way if you really like explain yourself to them.
Yes. And another thing you should do is you should pay great attention to user experience, because at the end, you are doing this project for someone's use. And what users want is what you should be doing in your project. So your developing abilities should be connected to what users would like to see in that application, what users would like to have as a feature in your project. So pay great attention to how you can include as many users as possible into your project.
So the next thing is that presentation actually matters. We're talking about getting in the top 10, and this is, if you look at it in a general sense, it's a competition where you actually want to get into top 10. Of course, the idea is important, but if you're joining a competition, it means that you also at some point have the intention of kind of succeeding to some level. So presentation matters. If you have a great idea, for example, last year our DSE team lead had a great idea, and like they did not do well on the presentation side. Their video was not really good. They did not really have a good design, so it didn't stand out. So if you so what I also observed from the Tepton projects this year is that they all had great designs and they all had great videos. So please pay attention to them if you really want to go far in this competition. And yeah.
Yeah, and you should make a professional branding for your project. I think this was where QRegister kind of stood out, because we paid great attention to how aesthetically pleasing our application looked, our display screen looked, and we really paid attention to the videos, little clips, and like how we should shoot the display screen so that it looks good with the Raspberry Pi screen. And one thing that I think you should be doing is start social media accounts for your project. For example, QRegister has Instagram, LinkedIn, Gmail, YouTube. We have a support page up and running. And this was really helpful for us, for our submission, because it stood us out. And we worked on the UI UX and the video. About the UI UX, if you are not familiar with UI UX, definitely go check out some tutorials on YouTube or other websites, because it really affects how your project looks. You might have a really great idea, but if you are not presenting it well to the world, then it's nothing, basically. It's the ugly truth. And pay attention to presenting. And also pay attention to grading criteria. It's up on Google Solution Challenge 2022 page. And you should tune your project according to these rubrics if you want to perform well on the Solution Challenge.
For example, there was one point where it said that it should be globally, like it should be a topic that is globally concerning. So to make our system globally applicable, we first had an online scanning system. So we first implemented an offline system so that everyone who has a phone who has a smartphone, of course, could be able to use it, even if they did not have access to internet at that time. Or we made it so that everyone who had a screen, every little store who had a screen, like a tablet screen, could be able to implement it with just a barcode scanner. So this made it really cheap and easily implementable by many, many stores.
Yes, and another really important point about this globally applicable is your solution should be really impactful. This is on the Google Solutions page. They give you 60 points out of 100 for impact, and the other 40 points are for Google technologies. So you should really pay attention to how you can make your project more inclusive, how you can affect people all around the world in all conditions. So for our case, it was people who did not have internet connection, people who did not have any local data left, or people who did not have access to a Raspberry Pi screen. And we really tried to brainstorm ideas on how to solve these problems to make our project more impactful. And lastly, we used many Google technologies at many different areas effectively, which gave us a really good start in the Google Solution Challenge.
So lastly, I want to say that we actually had kind of the same beginning with SimplAR's presentation. Like we both touched upon that brainstorming was important and that reaching out to people who actually were involved with the problem was important. So I think in the end, that's one of the two things, two of the many things that you should really pay close attention to. And planning is like the key in ending all this in a smooth way. So thank you again for having us. And if you have any questions during the brainstorming sessions, we would be great to answer them. And Alcom?
Yes, and a very on-brand closing from QRegister is a QR code, which literally takes you to our email, which is qregisterhelp@gmail.com. You can email us anytime for any questions after this event. We are available 24/7. And thank you for listening to us.
Alcom, can you go back one slide? Someone had a...
Maybe you could put your LinkedIn links in the messages. That'd be good if anyone wants to connect and ask you questions. That'd be nice.
Okay.
Thank you. But no, it's really good app. Very good. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yassine, can
All
you share
right.
your screen?
Yep, I'll start sharing my screen again. Just a sec. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, QRegister and SimplAR, and for the inspiring talk and indeed for the amazing projects. All right,
welcome
we've
back.
already done that. All right, moving on. Since we're nearly close to wrap up the event, we would like, after hearing those inspiring projects, hopefully you guys are encouraged to apply and participate in the Solution Challenge. So please don't forget to register and submit your project between the 15th of March to the 31st of March. Here's the QR code, which leads immediately to the form. And then those who moderate in the chat, I'm also sure they will drop the link on the chat if you want to access it immediately. And we also would like to introduce one thing, if you still didn't hear about it, which is our Discord channel, which is a place for you to always stay updated regarding everything about the Solution Challenge. And if you're also interested in forming teams with students from different universities, get help from us as leads around the UK and Ireland. All of that, you can find all of this help in this QR code. So please join, make sure to join. There will be a lot of exciting activities going on the Discord server in the upcoming days. And I'm pretty sure those who have entered the chat will drop the link in the chat if you don't like not to scan it. All right, perfect. But wait, before we go to the breakout room, Stephanie have something to introduce.
Yes, please, before we go into breakout rooms where you can ask your questions to the teams and talk to them a bit about their work and what they've been doing. Here you can scan the QR where they will send you to upcoming events, and you can see different events happening in the GDSC platform from different universities. They have everything from speaking sessions to workshops and different workshops to prepare you for the Solution Challenge. So check that out, and it will really help you out in order to just come up with projects, brainstorming, and even form teams. So check them out. Yes, and now we should go to the breakout sessions. And well, thank you everyone so much, and you will be able to ask your questions to the teams. And thank you for joining this session, and thank you to Stuart and both teams, and thank you to Jacine, my co-presenter today, and Chiara, and just everyone. So.
And good luck with the Solution Challenge.
Yes, good luck with the Solution Challenge.
The breakout rooms.
Yes, go to the breakout rooms, everyone.
All
if you have any questions, just head into those, and they should be available right now, and you can ask questions to Alkin.
I just need 1 minute to set them up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chiara.
Could I ask a question meanwhile? Maybe it's like helpful for everybody. Because I'm one of the leads, like I'm leading the Warwick Club. I was wondering how we could actually support the people that wants to join this competition. Like how did you get support from your local chapters, and what do you think you should have added before going into the top 50 finalists? Because obviously you got some more mentors from Google and stuff like that, but before that stage, how should we like help the teams?
So in like DSC Metro, I was also a lead, and we tried to invite as many people as possible into joining Google Solution. And it was really a series of events where we told people about Google Solution Challenge and why they should be joining it. And after everyone was so excited about it, we created a brainstorming session where we gathered a bunch of people and told them to just shoot ideas, really, like nothing is stupid, you can say everything. And everyone just said stuff about what they should be implemented in their daily lives. And that's actually how we came up with the idea of QRegister. And I think it's the responsibility of a lead to create as many opportunities as possible for teams to conduct research and just create project ideas.
All right, perfect. I think the breakout rooms are up and running. If you still haven't joined, there should be a pop-up. Please press join. If you press cancel, you can find a yellow bar at the top where you can press join to join the assigned breakout room to you. Good luck and have fun.